I'm close to saying it all. I do not need this job. I do not need the hotline. The only difference between Chuck Todd and Amy Walter is that Amy has not had a blow up yet. But it's coming. It's coming. I have zero loyalties with Amy. She is screwing me in every way possible. And what do I get out of it? We finally begged her to show up for one Hotline TV. She's not going to lift a finger. She is not going to do a damn thing. She's just going to show up, and her name's going to be on the... Listen, there is no love.
Welcome to Hotline TV. I'm Quinn McCord.
And I'm John Mercurio. All right, Barack Obama is in Copenhagen later this week, and like him, we've got Olympics on the brain. All right, so here are our awards. Quinn, thank you so much for joining us, by the way.
Yes.
Our awards for gold, silver, and bronze political move of the week. All right, let's start with gold. Let's start with the gold medal. We're giving these for performances. People who we believe have given really stellar performances over the past week in politics. Olympian performances, if you will.
I get it.
I believe that this doesn't happen too often in the Olympics, but it's happening here on Hotline TV today. There is a tie for first place. There is a tie for the gold medal.
Okay.
And I believe that it's going to go to, I'm not just going to say the whole story, but I believe it's going to go to Florida Governor Charlie Crist. He is one of the two winners for that medal. He did a great, outstanding performance. And the other one, of course, goes to Kentucky Lieutenant Governor Dan Mongiardo, a Democratic candidate for Senate. Let's talk about those two stories. Let's start with Dan Mongiardo.
You know, I mean, the way I look at it...
Let's give a little background on what happened.
Oh, sure. Well, you know, Mongiardo was recorded secretly, you know, saying that Governor Steve Beshear has not really done as much to help him as he could, and that he has no loyalty to him, and that he's screwing him by giving a very tepid endorsement, not much fundraising help.
Profanity-laced.
Yes, it was profanity-laced. And in fairness, it was edited a bit, so we don't know exactly how everything strings together, but it's clear he was miffed.
Sure.
You know, I guess the big question is this something that's going to blow over, you know, in May of next year when the primary is, or is this sort of like on the extreme? Is this the nail in the coffin of Mongiardo? You know, I guess my view is I think Mongiardo was already a bit of the underdog in the Democratic primary against Jack Conway.
It's a bitter, dirty primary, though. This is Conway, who right after the Fancy Farm event, Mongiardo's people put up a sort of I feel pretty kind of
yes, a video.
Video of Jack Conway, the other candidate. It's one of these stories, though, that does play, I think, in a primary. When you have really actively engaged voters, you know, Steve Beshear is still relatively popular as the Democratic governor of Kentucky, so for Mongiardo to come out so strongly and personally against him, I think it's going to piss off a lot of these Beshear loyalists, such as they are, in a primary. And, you know, Beshear had endorsed him, so that, I think,
it seems a little ungrateful.
Yeah, it seems a little bit ungrateful.
Made him as the LG. I mean, it also gives you the overall view that maybe none of these campaigns are really ready for prime time.
Yeah.
Someone
who is ready for prime time and has been doing a lot of prime time, Governor Charlie Crist of Florida. Just a few months ago, this was the only Republican governor, I believe, in the country who was endorsing the president's economic stimulus plan. Not only did he endorse it, but he appeared with him at an event in Florida where he, heaped praise on Barack Obama, someone he'd campaigned against in 2008. This week, he seems to be singing quite a different tune, a little bit of a contortionist, if you will. Is contortionism a game in the Olympics?
Well, they have rhythm gymnastics, which kind of, you know, contort.
Oh, interesting.
I was that, and then '88 I won the silver medal for that.
I was unaware of that. That's interesting.
Last year they had men's rhythmic gymnastics, unfortunately. But, you know, I think you have to ask yourself one thing. Would Crist be doing this if he had absolutely no primary challenge?
That's what I'm talking about.
And I don't think so. I mean, I think this shows that he's taking the Marco Rubio challenge seriously.
It is the Rubio effect on Charlie Crist.
Yes.
He's probably the politician, and that's why he's getting the gold today, the politician in America who is most willing to do whatever it takes in order to to get elected.
Well, I'm sure he wouldn't be happy to hear you say
Well,
that.
he's a big fan of the show, so he understands that it's all taken
Yes.
with a grain of salt.
All right, now who's the silver medalist?
All right, let's go to the silver medal, and this is a newcomer to the show, someone a newcomer to politics, and apparently a newcomer to voting.
The entire electoral process.
The entire
including
democracy, small d. That's, of course, California gubernatorial candidate Meg Whitman, former CEO of eBay, announced her candidacy for governor just a few weeks ago, and unfortunately was forced to deal with questions over the weekend about her voting record, which apparently is an almost non-existent voting record. 28 years of her life, until 2002, I believe, were non-voting years. She never voted once, not even once. Wasn't even registered, I don't believe.
Yeah, well, I mean, the farther back you go, the harder it is to prove or disprove these types of things.
Well, she admitted it, though.
Did she really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, a lot of experts say that, oh, this type of, this is not the first time this charge has been raised in a political campaign. These types of things never work. And that's mostly true, but if it feeds into either a pre-existing narrative,
right,
or if it's the first thing you learn about a candidate,
right,
it can stick.
It can stick. I think you're right, though. I think the big point here is that it does feed into the narrative, which was already developing. She was refusing to debate her Republican opponents.
Yes. She
was refusing to answer very specific policy questions about how she would govern what's considered to some an ungovernable state, and she was refusing to really engage in the political campaign process that a lot of people. So I think you're right. It reinforced something people already knew. And Poizner, her Republican primary opponent, I think this does play. This is also like the Mongiardo story. I think one that plays really well in primaries because you have engaged partisan groups of voters, and Poizner already up with this new television ad saying, all right, so she didn't vote. That means, let's see, she never voted for Ronald Reagan for president. Obviously, that's something that's going to resonate with Republican primary voters.
Yes.
She didn't vote to recall Gray Davis, also something that a lot of Republican primary voters like to do. So those sorts of arguments, I think, work.
True. All right, on to the bronze medal, finally. New York Governor David Paterson on Meet the Press. A bronze-winning performance.
It was indeed. I have to say, I think that despite a lot of the criticism that Paterson has gotten for this performance, what else was he supposed to do? I thought he was dealing with the political reality, the landscape as it existed for him, which is, look, he knows he's a goner. He knows the White House wants him gone. He knows most of the Democratic establishment is urging him to get out, and he knows that there's this $10 million gorilla waiting in the wings to run. And he wants to do it on his terms. He wants to do it with some modicum of grace, and he does it. He wants to go down fighting, which I think you have to give him credit for at least putting up a good front in trying to do.
I guess. I mean, I guess some people were saying it's a mistake for him to go on. I guess there's a good reason for him to go on, and you're right. He wasn't a meltdown. It wasn't as bad. I mean, do you think he showed as much fighting spirit as he needed to show?
Probably not. Well, no, I do think he showed. He showed exactly what he showed, which is he showed respect and deference to the White House, such as it is, and he showed, I think, a willingness at the end of the day. He said, "I am running for governor." He, I think, left at least enough of an open window for himself to get out 2 or 3 months down the road, much like Jim Bunning did in Kentucky. Look, we all thought that Jim Bunning's insistence that he was going to run for re-election was an airtight commitment, and obviously that was not the case. He always intended to get out. And I think for Paterson, it's also a question of how he gets out, not when.
All right, you hear it first.
All right, we are almost out of time. But we do have one of my favorite features, and I know it's your favorite feature on the new Hotline TV, which is the last word.
Yes.
Are you familiar with this?
I'm getting familiar with it right now.
Okay, well, here we go. Here's the question. Last words. Quinn McCord. Will President Obama will Barack Obama bring the Olympics to Chicago? Will he be able to make the case to the IOC this week in Copenhagen? Quinn McCord.
I think there's a good chance. I think, the Olympics belong in America every 20 years, as opposed to some other podunk city somewhere elsewhere in the world.
That's so anti-world.
American. It's American exceptionalism.
Okay.
And people want to party in America. You don't want to go to some hotel, and I'm not going to say where, but.
Oh.
Now, whether it's Obama, Obama or not, I'm not going to say, but hey, if they come, he can take credit for it, right?
Yeah, I think that it's pretty much locked, signed, sealed, and delivered. The IOC made the case that if he came, that would give them a huge leg up. The only competition is Rio. Lula, come on, let's be honest. Lula versus Oprah, I'll take Oprah any day of the week. Unfortunately, for this week, we are out of time. Until next time, thanks so much for watching Hotline TV.
Goodbye.